My name's Les Binns. I was a sergeant in the army. Lads will say we're acting sergeant with looking balls. I actually got promoted just as I was leaving, so I'm going with that one. I joined in '97. Bit of a late starter. I joined about 22, 23. I was in the building trade. There was a recession in the building trade, so I thought I've got to get out here and do something. So I thought I'd give the army a shot and never look back. I did a couple of tours of Bosnia, a couple of tours of Iraq, and then a couple of tours of Afghanistan. So about 13 years later, that's when I decided to get out. It was partly because I was injured when I was in Afghanistan. I was out on patrol with an omelette team, Operation Mental Liaison team, looking after some A&A soldiers. And then we came to a vulnerable point. There was a group of them. So I went up to have a chat and said, look guys, you're all bunched together on a vulnerable point, you need to get spread out. Had a bit of an argument, and then next thing I know, one of them steps on the IED and boom, 3 of the guys got killed. And I ended up with shrapnel injuries to my face, blast injuries to my face, and then been left blind in my left eye for the rest of my life. In comparison to some of the other lads, I'm quite lucky, so I just thank the Lord every day that I managed to come back alive even though I was injured. And I decided to get out. I just had enough. This is what you call it. There was a lot of things going off in my personal life, and then obviously with the stuff that was happening in Afghanistan, and I just didn't want to carry on. So I got out feeling quite positive actually. Got into Civil Street, like I said, did resettlement, retrained as an electrician, as a test and inspection electrician. I got myself a decent job actually. But that's when the sort of things kicked in that I felt quite alone actually. I didn't realise at the time I was suffering from PTSD. I had a lot of arguments with my girlfriend at the time, and sort of kicking off and not understanding what was going off in my head. Just sit watching TV and then just end up burst out crying and all this, and I'm supposed to be this ex-soldier, rugby player, and it's just not. I'm sat there going, why is this happening? And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I decided that I was going to get help. I went to the doctors, went through the sort of like the NHS system, and obviously it was a quite new subject at the time with PTSD, especially going to the doctors in the local area. And I went into this really clinical environment. The doctor didn't seem to want to interact with me. He was just talking into his computer, looking for the signs and symptoms of PTSD, and not sort of talking to me directly, which was quite frustrating at the time. Then he just wanted to pump me full of drugs, and I just thought this is not right. I'm not going to be sat here and be turned into a zombie. We'll be pumped for all these drugs and then just spend the rest of my life just sat on the couch and wondering what's going to be around the corner. So I tried to. It's probably the worst decision in my life. I tried to go at it alone and try and fight it myself, and it caused a lot of problems in my personal life, with friends and family and whatever. I couldn't tell if I was being angry because people were causing me to be angry, or if it was me just being with the PTSD, if it was just that. So you had sort of this thing where you were constantly questioning yourself and like trying to understand why you were getting in these sort of situations. And it's strange because it's like a pain inside that you can't describe, and you sort of can't deliver it to anybody and everybody and try and make them understand what you're going through. It just seemed like I was just trying to punish myself with work, or sort of beat myself, or just trying to keep myself occupied all the time, and it wasn't doing me any good. And I just needed something else in life. I needed a challenge. I needed to do something. And then that's when I came up with the crazy idea of going to try and climb Mount Everest. And it's just got a good job. The first person I spoke to about it was a bloke called Depiction. And he's just as daft as me, and he backed me to health when we went for it. Like, so yeah, that's another story. There's that sort of thing where I needed to push myself and do something, and I don't know if it just for me personally, or I was trying to do it to inspire people, because I had a little girl at the time and all that sort of stuff. And there's nothing better than the feeling of your little girl looking up to you and saying, "Dad, you're awesome," and no matter what you do. Guys that never came back from Afghanistan or Iraq or Bosnia, and you think, am I just wasting my life here? These guys have had their lives taken away from them. There's guys that have come back and also had their lives taken away from them, whether it's through an horrific physical injury or from an horrific mental injury. So if I've still got that sort of push and edge that I can go off and do something, then you feel as though your life's, you're living your life with a bit more purpose, rather than just stood there treading water, knowing that these guys have not got this opportunity to be able to go off and try all these different things outside of the army. I suffered a long time with, like I said, with the crying and flashbacks. I've had some horrific flashbacks. It was something that was strange that actually set probably the worst one off. I was fishing. It was a lovely summer's evening. I was sat at the lakeside fishing, just on my own, lovely and sunny, doing my usual, not catching anything. And the guy who owns the lake was coming out with a shotgun. Didn't realise at the time, didn't see him, and he's starting to shoot some ducks on the pond, and not bother telling anybody. Now that's an extreme case for to set anything off. But the next thing I knew, I was back in Afghanistan again. My face was on fire and I couldn't see anything apart from just this massive bright light, and I could hear all that screaming and shouting around me again. And it must have been only for a split second, but it just felt like I was there back again. And I come round from it, and it was the most surreal experience I've ever had in my entire life. But it's still there, not so much nowadays, but if something extreme like that happens, which is is rare than rocking horse pull, it's still sort of there. That's sort of why I want to be a part of this peer support group. It's a fantastic thing that's been set up, because if I've gone through all this, and I consider myself at the lower level of somebody that's been injured coming back from Afghanistan, because when I was in the hospital in Birmingham, I see all these different guys at different ages, young lads. The guy next to me in the bed was 18, 19-year-old, and he's got both legs missing and an arm missing and all that sort of stuff. Then I'm just the tip of the iceberg. That poor lad's, he's basically a lot of his life taken away from him. So if I'm the tip of the iceberg and I've been suffering like that, then I'm probably one of the, not say the best people, but I can sort of understand and know what lads are going through. I know the dark times are horrible, but they don't last forever. So setting this peer support group up is an absolute fantastic initiative, because you're not going into that clinical environment where you're going to see a doctor who's got his white jacket on and his stethoscope, and you start panicking, well, what's he going to say and what's he going to do to me? You're talking to lads that you've worked with, you're talking to lads that you've been in the trenches with, you know how each other work, how people operate, and you don't have to go and speak to anybody that's up through the rank system or anything like that. You haven't got to, even serving soldiers can come and have a bit of a chat, and whether that's just phoning me direct or getting in direct on Messenger, or going through the sort of system that's been put in place, talking to the sort of people in charge of their areas for the peer support group, the phone numbers they've got set up. Then if you want to do it that way, or if you just want to have a chat on Messenger, send a quick text or whatever, then there's always a set of ears that's willing to sit there and listen to whatever you want to do. I don't know, just being a part of a group of like-minded people, like the best therapy is just being around like-minded people and not being judged, not being go off and you need to do this, you need to do that, because I've had that a lot of times in my life, saying you need to go and do this, you need to go and do that, and it just feels like it's putting more pressure on you. But the best thing is to be a part of like-minded individuals and just give a bit of a help, and just saying, have you tried doing this? Do you want me to go and have a look for you or whatever? And it's not about holding hands and caring for people for the rest of their lives. It's about giving some sort of initiative to whoever's sort of suffering, so they can crack on and sort of push on and help themselves out.